In the poker world, there is a famous saying that goes, "There are three ways to play pocket jacks, and all of them are wrong." Most players can relate to this sentiment about pocket jacks, since it is often considered one of the trickiest and most frustrating starting hands to play. What makes pocket jacks seemingly unplayable arises from the fact that pre-flop mistakes with jacks lead to even more challenging post-flop decisions. Today, we'll unravel the science of pocket jacks and provide key insights and poker strategies to play this hand effectively. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Tell us your memories of pocket jack in the comments. Understanding pocket jacks in holdem poker. Pocket jacks is never a new poker player's favorite starting hand for a reason. Pocket jacks can be a double-edged sword in poker, both pre-flop and post-flop. Even though pocket jacks is a strong starting hand, it's crucial to have realistic expectations when playing them. Pre-flop, you should expect frequent 3-bets from opponents, given the hand's strength. Surprisingly, some players tend to play jacks too passively, which can lead to tricky situations. In tournament play, all-in situations pre-flop are common, and you should be prepared for that. Your post-flop decisions with overpairs can significantly impact your overall win rate. It's where nuances like bet sizing and bluff-catching tactics come into play, making your decisions pivotal. So, while pocket jacks is a strong hand, don't be overly confident. Maintain a balanced approach and be ready for the challenges they bring. Analyzing flop outcomes. To better understand pocket jacks, let's use calculator to examine how this hand interacts across all possible flop scenarios. Sets or better. Pocket jacks hit sets or better approximately 12% of the time. Single pair hands. This encompasses overpairs to pocket pairs below the third pair, constituting the other 88% of flop outcomes. Draws. Pocket jacks are connected to draws, such as flush draws, open-ended straight draws, and gut shots, which occur about 6% of the time, all of which are also single-pair hands. Pocket jacks problems. Although they can be a premium hand if played correctly, they also come with challenges and potential pitfalls. Here are some common challenges you may encounter when playing pocket jacks. Overcard threat. Pocket jacks are an overpair, meaning they hold more value than the community cards. Nonetheless, when overcards land on the flop, cards higher than jacks, it cannot be easy to continue betting confidently. You will face this situation approximately 52% of the time when holding pocket jacks. Vulnerability as an overpair. Pocket jacks may be problematic to play as an overpair, particularly when met with aggressive post-flop action. Furthermore, with 3 overcards that might appear on the turn or river, they are susceptible to being outdrawn. Post-flop complexity. Post-flop decisions involving overpairs, such as bet sizing and bluff catching, have an essential impact on your win rate, and most players lack the skills to navigate post-flop without making costly mistakes. Pre-flop tips with pocket jacks. Now that we have covered the challenges players face with pocket jacks, let's explore some pre-flop poker strategies to maximize your success with this hand. 3-bet more with pocket jacks. While many players would flat call with pocket jacks, 3-betting might be a more rewarding strategy in specific scenarios. It not only lets you gain control of the pot, but it also narrows the field, making it more straightforward to read your opponent's hands. Nevertheless, it's critical to choose the ideal spots to 3-bet, factor in your position, your opponents, and the general table dynamics. You may optimize your earnings and keep your opponents guessing by adding this approach to your game. 4-bet often too. When you're in a late position with a pair of pocket jacks and your opponent has a 3-bet, it's worth contemplating a 4-bet. This tactic is effective in exploiting your opponent's weaknesses. By 4-betting, you put pressure on your opponent and potentially compel them to make errors. It's a strategic choice that can catch your opponents off guard, particularly if you've noticed they are overly aggressive 3-betters. Squeeze effectively. Poker players often neglect squeeze play when holding pocket jacks, which is a powerful technique. Pre-flop calling is often in live cash games. Thus, this strategy becomes even more critical. Making a significant 3-bet instead of calling behind when there are one or more callers is the better course of action. Many players tend to be overly passive in this situation, leading to post-flop dilemmas with hands like slight overpairs or second pairs in multi-way pots. Squeezing pre-flop not only applies more pressure to the initial raiser, but also capitalizes on the wide calling ranges of your opponents. By doing so, you create a scenario that simplifies post-flop decisions, resulting in a more profitable approach compared to simply overcalling. Fold less against 3-bets. Do not fold to a 3-bet when you have pocket jacks. Unless you have a clear, reliable read on the 3-bet range of your opponent, it's generally advisable to continue with your jacks in the face of a 3-bet. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule. If your opponent is exceptionally tight or, say, a seasoned player who's been sipping coffee and folding for hours, it might be prudent to fold. However, more often than not, without solid information on your opponent's tendencies, sticking with your pocket jacks when facing a 3-bet is a reasonable course of action. Be mindful of stacking off. If you find yourself in a late position battle and your opponent makes a substantial bet or even shoves all in, pocket jacks become a strong candidate for stacking off, whether by calling their 5-bet shove or by making a bold 5-bet jam over their 4-bet. However, it's essential to note that you should generally avoid going all in with jacks pre-flop if either you or your opponent are in an early or middle position. Furthermore, the size of your stack matters. In a tournament, if you have a deep stack of, say, 300 big blinds, going all in with jacks pre-flop may not be the best default strategy. If you liked the video so far, subscribe to us and watch our Strategy Poker playlist, Post-Flop Strategy for Pocket Jacks. Let's explore post-flop tactics to help you maximize your potential with this difficult hand, assuming you played pocket jacks well before the flop. Bet sizing. Surprisingly, in specific situations, it might be a good idea to overbet with jacks. For instance, when the flop is relatively dry and lacks significant draws, the GTO solver suggests that an overbet can be a viable option, even though it might not be the conventional play. Similarly, in 3-bet pots, where a 33% pot-sized bet is usually the norm, the solver sometimes recommends larger bets of 50% to 75% with jacks, though there's a crucial exception to keep in mind. If there's a possibility of a made flush or straight on the flop, it's wise to switch to a more cautious approach with your jacks. So, while it's essential to consider these alternative strategies, continuously adapt your play to the specific board texture and the potential danger of strong hands for your opponents. Rarely fold in 3 or 4-bet pots. In a standard poker game with stacked depths of around 100 big blinds, it's generally advisable to be cautious when considering folding pocket jacks as an overpair in a 3 or 4-bet pot. The rationale behind this is that jacks is a strong hand, and in such situations, it's often better to lean towards commitment rather than looking for a fold. Of course, this strategy assumes that you don't have any specific reads on your opponent and are playing based on general principles. If you have valuable information about your opponent's tendencies and think it's a good spot to fold, that's a different story. But as a general guideline, jacks as an overpair in these scenarios often warrants a commitment mindset. Aim for multiple streets of value. Pocket jacks often yield 2 to 3 streets of value, especially when you flop an overpair and the board cooperates. In such cases, you can confidently bet, and bet again, extracting value from your opponent, especially if they're on the weaker side. The less skilled your opponent is, the more likely they are to hold on with second-best hands, allowing you to profit with a relentless betting strategy. However, the situation can change if the board doesn't cooperate. If overcards appear or numerous draws fill up, you might have to settle for just 2 streets of value or just 1. Adaptation is vital, and sometimes A bet-check bet or bet-bet-check approach might be more suitable. If you find yourself consistently only getting a single street of value with pocket jacks post-flop, you might be missing out on opportunities and playing your overpairs too cautiously. Play cautiously with underpairs. Playing pocket jacks post-flop can be a tricky situation, especially when the community cards don't favor your hand. This cautious approach is a common theme with strong starting pocket pairs like pocket queens, pocket jacks, and pocket tens. When you flop the second or third pair with these hands, it's generally wise to slow down and proceed cautiously. While it's possible to extract some value from your hand if the opportunity arises, it's often more prudent to play conservatively. Rushing to put in value bets or continuation bets, C-bets, can be a costly mistake. Your opponents might not be bluffing frequently enough to warrant aggressive play. It's important to remember that occasional bluffs will occur, but many players make the error of overcommitting chips with the second or third pair. Instead, it's better to take a patient and measured approach, allowing you to make more informed decisions and avoid costly missteps post-flop. So, when holding these under-pair hands, take a deep breath, relax, and prioritize playing cautiously rather than aggressively. Wrapping up. Pocket jacks might not be the most beloved hand in poker, but with the correct strategies you can navigate them effectively. By understanding their challenges, adopting appropriate pre-flop and post-flop strategies, and adjusting your play based on the specific scenario, you can turn this often hated hand into a profitable one. By mastering the science of pocket jacks, you're not only improving your play with this hand, but also gaining valuable insights into how to handle other similar hands like pocket tens or pocket queens. So the next time you hold this hand, play it with confidence and a strategic mindset. Good luck at the tables.